The station was loud, alive with echoes of rolling suitcases and the shrill cry of departing trains. Yet in the middle of that chaos, she stood still, shoulders drawn in, eyes fixed on the departing crowd as if searching for something that would not appear. Her hand clutched a small, weathered suitcase. The handle dug into her palm, but she didn't loosen her grip. A red scarf slipped from the side pocket, brushing against her wrist like a stubborn memory. She caught it quickly, pressing it to her chest, as if afraid someone might take even this last fragment from her. Platform 9 is closing, the announcement crackled, impersonal, cold. Her gaze followed a family rushing past her, father's firm hand on the son's back, mother's laughter trailing in the air. She inhaled sharply, the sight piercing deeper than she wanted to admit. For a moment, she thought of turning away, of letting the crowd swallow her, of pretending none of it mattered. But her feet refused to move. The wind swept through the station doors, teasing strands of hair across her face. She didn't tuck them back. Instead, she let them blur her vision, shield her from eyes that might have noticed her trembling. Her phone buzzed once in her coat pocket. She didn't check it. She already knew it wasn't them. Her lips parted, but no words came. Just the faint taste of metal from biting down too hard, trying to hold herself together. She lifted her wrist, the cracked watch staring back at her. The glass was broken, spiderweb lines across its face, but the hands still ticked with stubborn precision. She hated that watch. She hated that she couldn't let it go. A voice inside her whispered what she had been avoiding all along: they won't come. Not for you. Not now. She exhaled shakily, clutching the scarf tighter, willing herself not to cry here, not in front of strangers who wouldn't care. The train roared into the station, brakes screeching, wind rushing forward. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, imagining what it would feel like to step on, to leave behind the years of begging, the unanswered calls, the doors closed in her face. Somewhere deep in her chest, anger smoldered beneath the ache. A vow forming quietly, without permission: if they won't stand beside me, I'll walk ahead of them. The suitcase handle burned against her skin. The scarf slipped again, falling this time to the ground. She stared at it, bright red against the dull concrete, refusing to be ignored. The announcement called her train. Her fingers hovered, hesitating between picking it up or leaving it behind. And in that suspended second, before movement, before choice, her whole life hung, trembling, on the edge. The scarf lay on the floor, vivid against the gray tiles. She bent down slowly, fingers brushing the rough fabric, and for a moment her vision blurred. She remembered another time, years ago, when the same scarf had belonged to her mother. A winter evening, her small hands tucked into her mother's coat pocket as they walked home from the market. She had sneezed, and her mother had looped the scarf around her neck, laughing softly. "Red makes you brave," she'd said. Now the fabric felt heavy, like it carried every word never spoken since. Her throat tightened. She tucked it back into the suitcase and straightened, only to find her reflection in the station's glass doors, eyes ringed with exhaustion, hair falling loose, shoulders slumped as if carrying an invisible weight. The announcement echoed again, but her mind had slipped backward. Her father's voice, sharp and final: "We're not giving you money for this nonsense. You should know better." She had stood there, frozen, her palms sweating. It wasn't the refusal that broke her, it was the way he turned away immediately, like the conversation was already over, like she was already over. She clenched the suitcase handle tighter now, knuckles whitening. A group of passengers hurried past, laughter tumbling from their lips. A young man dropped his backpack, and his sister bent to pick it up, their argument dissolving into giggles. The girl watched them quietly, her chest hollow. Every small reunion around her felt like a wound pressed deeper. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't look. Instead, her eyes drifted across the platform, catching sight of someone watching. A stranger. Standing a little apart, hands in pockets, gaze steady. He wasn't staring in a way that felt invasive, no. His silence was deliberate, as though he had seen too many people breaking apart in public places and had learned the dignity of keeping still. She shifted uncomfortably, pretending to adjust her sleeve, but his gaze lingered, not unkind, not pitying, just present. She turned away, heart hammering. The cracked watch glinted under the harsh station light as she checked the time. Its fractured face mocked her with its stubborn ticking, reminding her that no matter how much she stalled, the train would still leave. Her mother's scarf. Her father's refusal. The empty years between. They all folded into this moment, pressing her forward. The crowd began to move as the train doors hissed open. The scarf slipped again, this time only halfway out of the pocket, fluttering against her leg like it wanted to escape. She hesitated. The stranger was still there, waiting without words. Her hand hovered over the suitcase handle, trembling. For a second, she almost smiled, as if the absurdity of holding on, of letting go, might crush her in equal measure. But then, she stopped. Mid-step. Breath caught. The scarf brushed her wrist again. The platform shuddered as the train's engines hummed alive, lights cutting through the fog that had begun to crawl over the station. Somewhere above, the sky rumbled low, heavy with the promise of rain. She should have stepped forward. Her ticket was in her pocket, her path marked. Yet her eyes flicked back, toward the stranger. He hadn't moved. The crowd pressed around him, yet he remained as though rooted. His shoes caught her eye, scuffed leather, soles fraying, not the kind of wear that came from fashion but from years of walking too far with too little. Her breath hitched. She shouldn't notice these things. The scarf tugged against her suitcase, almost loosening again, and she thought, why does everything I carry want to escape me? The stranger shifted slightly, and the movement revealed a corner of his wallet peeking from his coat. Just a flash, but enough. A photograph, folded at the edge, the image blurred by time. She only saw a child's face, half smiling. It burned into her mind before he tucked it back, unaware. Her chest tightened. Was it a daughter? A son? Or someone gone too soon? She looked away quickly, ashamed of her curiosity, but the damage was done. His silence was no longer just silence. It was a mirror. The station lights flickered as thunder rolled louder. A few drops of rain smudged the glass doors, trailing downward like tired tears. She pressed her palm against her suitcase, grounding herself, but her mind refused stillness. She remembered her own father's wallet. How once, years ago, she had slipped a photo of herself inside, hoping he'd carry it. She had checked weeks later, only to find it crumpled at the bottom of a drawer, forgotten. The memory stung like fresh glass. The stranger's presence pulled at that wound, made it ache and hum in unison with the storm outside. Her body leaned forward, her train calling her by the minute, yet something invisible chained her to this man she had never spoken to. Was it recognition? Loneliness? Or the dangerous hope that maybe someone who carried pain could understand her own? She wiped at her damp hair, whispering under her breath, "Go. Just go." But her legs stayed still. The train doors began to close. Panic surged inside her chest, choice pressed harder now. And then, he looked at her. For the first time, his eyes lifted fully, meeting hers with a calm that startled her. No smile, no frown, just the weight of someone who had learned to carry storms quietly. The rain fell harder outside, drowning the noise of the station. She gripped the scarf. He tucked his wallet deeper into his coat. And in that suspended instant, between departure and delay, she couldn't tell if fate was pulling her closer, or warning her to run. The train doors shuddered, closing halfway before jerking open again, the platform announcement cutting through the storm like a knife. People hurried inside, their impatience brushing against her shoulders as they passed. She almost went with them. Her suitcase tilted forward as she took a step, her breath catching. Leave, just leave, there's nothing here for you. But her neck twisted against her will, her eyes darting back for one last look. The scarf betrayed her again. Somewhere between her hesitation and the rush of bodies, it had slipped free, sliding down, bright red against the concrete. And it was not she who bent for it. The stranger's hand reached first. Rough fingers lifted the fabric, holding it carefully, almost reverently, as though it were something fragile. He didn't rush to return it. Instead, he studied it briefly, the red cloth dangling from his grip, glowing under the harsh fluorescent lights. Their eyes met across the space. Something unspeakable bridged the silence. A woman passing by whispered to her husband, "She's just standing there, lost." The words cut sharper than intended, reminding her of every sideways glance, every judgment, too weak, too dramatic, too much. Her throat ached. She wanted to yell that she wasn't lost, she was fighting, that silence itself was heavier than any suitcase. But the words tangled inside her chest. The stranger stepped closer, still holding the scarf. His shoes scuffed against the wet floor, the sound oddly loud in her ears. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost fragile against the storm outside. "Some people carry more than just bags, they carry silence." Her body froze. It wasn't a line. It wasn't even meant for her, she thought. It was said like a confession, something cracked open without permission. She reached out instinctively, trembling fingers brushing the fabric as he held it out. Their hands didn't touch, but the nearness was unbearable. Behind her, a child tugged at his mother's arm, asking too loudly, "Why is she crying?" She hadn't realized tears had slipped down her cheeks until now. The scarf lay between them, heavy with new weight, not just her mother's memory, not just her father's rejection, but now his silence stitched into it too. The announcement blared again, urgent, final. Doors would close. People pushed past, annoyed at her stillness. One man muttered, "Move, girl. She should move. She should leave." But her hand lingered on the fabric, her eyes fixed on his, asking questions neither of them could voice. The thunder roared again. And there, with the world pressing her forward and something unnamed pulling her back, she stood trembling, caught in the space where choices burn and answers never come. The scarf rested in her hands now, damp from the rain that had begun seeping through the station roof. She clutched it tightly, almost afraid it would dissolve if she let go. The stranger hadn't stepped back. His gaze lingered, steady, searching, until she noticed something she hadn't before. The photo that had peeked earlier from his wallet had slipped loose when he moved. It was on the floor now, half hidden near his shoe. She blinked. Not just a child. A girl. The scarf, the same scarf, wrapped around her tiny shoulders. Her lungs stalled. Her voice broke, softer than the storm. This scarf, it was hers? He bent slowly, picking up the photo without answering. But his silence was already the truth. The way his jaw tensed, the way his thumb pressed the photo's edge, it said everything words would only cheapen. A memory clawed through her, her mother's voice years ago, "Red makes you brave." The same line. Different lips. Different child. Different ending. Her chest caved inward. Before she could stop herself, she whispered, "Why me? Why this?" He looked at her then, eyes carrying the storm she'd been running from. And when he finally spoke, the echo cut like glass. Some people carry more than just bags, they carry silence. But now, it wasn't about her. It was about him. The platform emptied. Doors slammed shut. The train left without her. For the first time, she didn't chase it. Her phone buzzed again, another rejection email flashing across the screen. Position filled. The company she'd pinned her last hope on. Her fingers trembled as she read the signature line at the bottom. His name. She stared at him, blood roaring in her ears. The man in front of her, the silent stranger with worn shoes and an unspoken grief, was the owner. The door she had been knocking on all along had always been his. Her laugh came out sharp, broken. Of course. Of course it's you. The scarf pressed against her face, choking her with its weight. No return now. No pretending she could step back into who she was before this moment. The storm raged harder outside, water streaking down the glass, erasing the world beyond. She moved, not away, not toward the train, but toward the staircase leading deeper into the station, toward his world, not hers. Every step echoed like a vow, like chains breaking and forming at once. She did not look back. At the bottom of the stairs, a door waited, metal, heavy, unmarked. She pushed it open. And with the sound of hinges crying out, she crossed into something that would not let her return unchanged. The underground corridor hummed with the sound of pipes, dripping water, the faint echo of doors long closed. She hesitated on the last step, the scarf clutched like a lifeline, her suitcase dragging behind her. The stranger followed, his steps measured, not chasing, but arriving. When she turned, the dim light caught the photograph still in his hand. He didn't hide it this time. He let her see. The girl in the photo, his daughter. The same scarf wrapped around her shoulders, the same cracked watch on her wrist. A mirror through time. Her throat locked. "Why me?" she whispered again, though the words felt heavier here, as if the walls themselves demanded an answer. He looked at her, voice roughened by years of silence. "Because you remind me of who I lost. And because I don't get to walk past the red scarf twice." Her chest caved in, knees trembling. She wanted to scream, to push him away, to curse fate for weaving grief and survival into the same knot. Instead, she tightened her grip on the scarf until her knuckles ached. The cracked watch ticked faintly on her wrist, her father's rejection, her mother's memory, his daughter's ghost, all tangled in the rhythm of seconds. She thought of what she wanted most, a chance, a voice, a place where her worth wasn't dismissed. The job she had fought for, the future she had chased. But now she understood. His choice to pull her close wasn't about her strength. It was about his loss. Tears slipped down her face, hot, unstoppable. The scarf fluttered in her hands like it wanted release. Slowly, deliberately, she stepped forward and pressed it back into his palm. "It isn't mine," she said, voice breaking. "It never was." For a moment, neither moved. The world hung in that silence, the storm above, the dripping pipes, the sharp ache of letting go. Then his fingers closed around the scarf, trembling. He nodded once, a gesture of both surrender and gratitude. She turned, dragging her suitcase toward the stairwell leading out. Every step felt like tearing skin from bone, but something inside her was lighter now, stripped bare, reborn in the act of giving back what was never hers to carry. At the platform above, the station buzzed with its familiar chaos. Families reunited. Strangers brushed past. Her reflection met her in the glass doors again, but different this time. Shoulders squared, gaze steady, silence carried not as a wound but as a choice. The same station. The same storm. But no longer the same girl. Behind her, his figure lingered in shadow, the red scarf glowing faintly in his hand. Their paths had touched, collided, scarred, and now unraveled again. She did not wait for him. He did not call her back. Some stories end not with holding on, but with release. And as she stepped into the rain, her final thought burned like scripture: not every stranger you help is meant to stay, but some leave you changed forever. The storm had thinned by the time she stepped outside. Rain lingered only as a mist on her skin, as though the sky itself had softened its grief. She walked without hurry, suitcase rolling behind her, each wheel clicking steady against the uneven pavement. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the urge to run. The city stretched before her, neon lights blurred by rain, windows glowing with families gathered inside. She used to ache at such sights. Tonight, the ache was still there, but quieter, tempered by something new. She stopped at a corner cafe, its windows fogged, laughter spilling faintly into the street. She didn't go in. She just watched, letting the warmth of other people's lives brush against her without cutting into her. Later, in the small rented room she called home, she set her suitcase against the wall and sank onto the narrow bed. The silence was vast, but not suffocating. She reached into her coat pocket. The watch still ticked stubbornly, the cracked face reflecting a shard of lamplight. She laid it gently into the drawer by her bedside. The scarf was gone now, returned, as if it had never been hers to carry, but the watch remained. A reminder of both time lost and time still beating. Her fingers lingered on the drawer's edge. A memory surfaced, her mother's voice, soft but certain. Sometimes love is not romance, it's recognition. Recognition. That was what had passed between her and the stranger. No vows, no promises. Just a recognition of pain, of silence carried, of lives scarred differently but echoing the same hollow notes. She leaned back, closing her eyes, listening to the hum of the city through thin walls. The scarf would live in his hands now, stitched into his grief. The watch would live in hers, fractured but still counting. The world had not given her closure. It rarely did. What she had instead was this, the choice to move forward, even if her hands shook, even if her heart still carried splinters. She imagined him still at the station, standing in shadow with the red scarf glowing against the dim lights. Their paths had crossed like two storms brushing against each other, brief, violent, unforgettable. Tomorrow would demand something new of her. A job, a step, a fight. But tonight, she allowed herself to breathe in the fragile peace of surviving. Her eyes opened to the ceiling, steady, unblinking. Because some endings are not about resolution. They are about learning how to carry silence differently. And sometimes, the heaviest baggage we leave behind is the version of ourselves who thought we were unloved.